Alrighty, guys, this is going to be a full spoiler discussion for Daredevil Born Again episode number 8. It is, well, we're getting there, guys. We are getting to the finale of the show. The finale of the show is going to be in 1 week's time. And for now, we're gonna have to console ourselves with talking about the second to last episode, which I happen to think is quite good. I did like episode 7 better. I think episode 7 was still, to me, the best episode of the entire series. But I think episode 8 sets up a lot of very interesting things. So before we get into any more detail, this is going to be, as I mentioned, a full spoiler discussion for episode number 8 of Daredevil Born Again. If you have not seen it, no worries at all. Just make sure to come back to the video, come back to the podcast, wherever you are listening or watching, come back to it later. And then once you have seen the episode, make sure to join us again. And if you don't care about spoilers, then welcome aboard. So let's talk about episode number 8. Like I said, just to quickly summarize my thoughts here at the very beginning, I think episode 8 is really good. I was locked in the entire episode. I do think a few things in this episode, obviously the last, 2 minutes of the episode are, well, interesting, right? With Matt being shot and Matt trying to save Kingpin. There's so much to unpack there. But, I think there are a couple things like that are a little confusing to me. And I said in my immediate reaction, I think they're confusing in the sense of, well, they could just be really random. Like, for example, if in the next episode Matt just gets up and he's fine, okay, a little weird. Which, again, there is precedent for in this universe with Kingpin getting shot in the face and literally nothing happening to him. So, I don't know. Maybe that's what happens here. But I think, and then also, if Matt and Kingpin just become friends all of a sudden, I don't think that's what's going to happen. I hope that's not what's going to happen, especially given what we've seen from set photos from season 2 of the Anti-Vigilante Task Force being a much bigger part of it. So, yeah, I'm all for uneasy alliances against Bullseye, I guess, but it would be kind of weird to me if Bullseye ended up being the main antagonist at the end of the show. I mean, I guess Vanessa Fisk might be the main antagonist at the end of the show. I don't know. It's kind of weird. We'll get to all that towards the end of this episode. So there's some things in here that are a little confusing, but intriguing, right? And also, we know that Punisher still has to show up here as well. So there are a lot of things that are going to be set up in the finale. But before we get into any of that, let's dive in to the episode as a whole. So we start out this episode with Bullseye. And look, I mean, I'm not going to lie, right? Throughout this entire show, I've been kind of looking at and trying to figure out, and just subconsciously, because for me, I've been just thinking, okay, what's the best show? Like, what are the good scenes? What do I like? What do I not like? But in the back of my head, I've been thinking about what are the scenes, what are the episodes, what are the portions of this show that have been reshot and redone, and what is the old show? To me, an episode like episode 5 with Mr. Khan is so obviously part of the old show. And again, it was interesting. It was fine. But I think that the beginning, episode 1, which they confirmed was completely new, and then the ending, episode 8, to me, and episode 7 to a larger extent, episode 8 felt like, oh, this is part of the show that they kind of reimagined. Because, I mean, if you notice, Bullseye is not in the show at all from episodes 2 through 6. And then he shows up again in episode, or 2 through 7, he shows up again in episode 8. So I think this is, to me, there's a show in here where it's episode 1, episode 7, episode 8, and probably episode 9, to me, feel like the best version of this show. And the stuff in the middle is fine and all, and there's some good things in there, like the Daredevil versus Muse fights and some of the stuff with, Matt talking to some of his clients with White Tiger and I forget his name, but the guy in the prison who stole popcorn. There's some interesting things in there, but overall, I think that the bookends are the kind of show that I was looking forward to very much. So Bullseye is being moved to the bigger prison, the general prison out of solitary confinement, and we figure out why later. It has to do with Vanessa Fisk. It is interesting that Wilson and Vanessa are just chatting, even though I guess Wilson doesn't know that it was Vanessa who sent Lucas, so I guess that's meant to be a big thing. I thought at the end of last episode when he said, "Thank you, Buck," and he said, let's pack up some wine for Vanessa. I thought that was implicitly him saying, oh, I know it was her and we're going to talk about it. I guess not. I guess the end of the episode sort of sets up the revelation that Wilson has been officially betrayed by Vanessa. So I think that prediction that I made a couple weeks ago where I said, I think at the end of the season, we're going to see Wilson Fisk, unlike Wilson Fisk has ever been seen before, which is completely untethered from Vanessa Fisk, and that we just haven't seen that before, so I think that's interesting. But they head down to see Adam, and that is about as disturbing as you think it might be. And we'll get to the ending of that scene in just a second. But, in as creepy fashion as per usual, Wilson Fisk takes Vanessa down to see Adam. And in parallel, I kind of like how they're doing these things in parallel, how they're intercutting the Daredevil and Fisk stuff, although sometimes it's a little random. Like the other scene where it was with Muse? I forget. In the previous episode, I thought it was really good. In these episodes, or it wasn't with, it was Daredevil fighting Muse, and it was Kingpin fighting Adam, and I think that was really great. This feels a little random to me, just Buck showing up in the middle, showing up to Daredevil's door, and it was like, okay, whatever. But then, we keep intercutting between these scenes, and Kingpin says a line here where he says, "If I cannot be with you, Vanessa, I cannot be." And I think that's really going to come back to bite him in the finale based on what happens at the end of this episode. So I'm very interested to see what that turns into, because I think that this relationship is done for. Heather is also turning against Matt, and that's very clearly, I think at this point we have to say it's Vanessa Fisk. I guess in this season, Wilson Fisk was just kind of doing, being a mayor and not really, I mean, he was being, a very authoritarian kind of mayor, but he was just being a mayor. And I guess Vanessa Fisk was really the one trying to turn against Matt Murdock. I don't know. Maybe we'll get some more explanation. I'm sure we'll get some more explanations as to why she targeted Foggy in particular. Just to be transparent, in my rewatch of Daredevil, I'm halfway through season 2, have not gotten to the end of season 3, so I know, obviously, I remember the ending scene of Daredevil season 3, so and the fight with Matt and Kingpin. I don't exactly remember what goes on there, so I'll have to see once we get there. But yeah, Heather is turning against Matt here, and then Vanessa shoots Adam, and they are a horrifying pair. I saw that coming as soon as they walked over there. I knew that she was going to shoot him. And then kind of the intrigue is building. You're kind of going, okay, why would Wilson Fisk be moving Poindexter to the general prison away from solitary confinement? And we kind of have to wait until the end of the episode to see. But then we're back to Kingpin being the mayor, and it's interesting because they're citing all these statistics, like, oh, vigilante activity is down 30%. In my head, I'm going, how do you get that number? What does that mean? Vigilante activity is down 30%. I frankly, I have no idea what that means. But I don't know. Maybe they have some metric that they're looking at. It's like Spider-Man did less Spider-Maning today. I don't know. I frankly have no idea. Anyways, then we get some more scenes with Daniel Blake, and every scene with Daniel Blake, because Fisk is like, oh, you're deputy mayor now. That's my terrible Wilson Fisk impression. And I'm like, everything with Daniel Blake still is just not clicking with me. And it's frustrating because I think I see what they're going for with this character, and it's just not working. He's kind of that annoying, person in politics who joins and is given a lot of power and authority. Well, I don't want to get into politics. I say this every single episode. This is not the channel for that. I think we would be almost a little ignorant if we didn't point out the parallels that this has to the real world, which is interesting because this show was filmed well before the recent presidential election. But it's very interesting, right? It's very interesting that right down to I'm going to say it, Elon Musk kind of parallel here with Daniel Blake, where you have this guy on the inside who has no political experience, but he's being put into this position of power by the mayor/president. I just think it's interesting, the fact that this was shot well before the recent presidential election. So anyways, it's just kind of an interesting thing. I see the vision for it, for sure. I just I don't know. I'm just not a big fan of the way that James Gandolfini is playing the character, I think, is all. So we cut back to Matt Murdock, and Matt is losing it. Matt is clearly losing it. We have a scene with him and Kirsten where he just goes off on a client. And, I mean, you feel bad for him, right? Because I think what we're seeing here now, because he came back in the Daredevil suit, right? So he is, Daredevil again for all intents and purposes. But I think he's still really struggling, right? He's really struggling with the fact that, okay, how am I, gonna navigate this world, as in the wake of Foggy's death. And I think that what he's realizing in these scenes here at the law office is that the system isn't working, right? The system is corrupt. And I think that is going to be the realization he comes to at the end of this episode. And I think that will lead very nicely into season 2 is my prediction. So, and then he goes to Josie's, which is a really nice scene where Cherry shows up and he goes to Josie's. And we start to build a little bit of this mystery here that, Foggy's death wasn't completely random. It wasn't just Bullseye going on a killing spree, but there's something going on here. There is something going on here, and he thinks that Fisk was behind it. And so there's some intrigue here, and we see Matt go to Poindexter because Poindexter was wanting to talk to Matt Murdock there. And it's a tense conversation between Bullseye and Matt. Upon thinking about it a little bit more, because initially during the scene, right, they're talking, and you can tell how angry Matt is. And Matt slams Matt slams Poindexter's head into the desk, which, side note, I mean, he's like, officer, this guy is just slamming his head into the desk, and he goes and gets him. He's like, you're crazy. Are there not cameras in that room? I think that's crazy that nobody would have seen just this blind lawyer slam this guy's head into the I don't know. Maybe that's just me. But, as I was thinking about it, originally I kind of thought, oh, interesting. Did Matt want Poindexter to leave? Is that why he's slamming his head into the table? And then at the end of this episode, he gets shot. So my thought is no, but then also maybe yes later on. Maybe in episode 9 it was, yeah, he did mean for Poindexter to get out, so he wanted to talk to him, and then it ended up being very bad. I don't know. We'll have to see how that manifests in episode 9, I suppose. But anyways, we then get to the ball, right? That's where everything takes place, and we get Swordsman here. And we get Kingpin. He's showing up in the white suit, which I love. That's classic. That is classic Kingpin. I think Vincent D'Onofrio in this show has been fine as Kingpin. He's just been kind of, being the mayor and whatnot. But I think in this scene in particular, he really shows up and looks like Kingpin at the very least. And I think that is a really cool thing to see there as well. And Bullseye, we get to see Bullseye go on a rampage in the prison, so he's escaping there. Meanwhile, at the ball, we have Swordsman who shows up. And I have to say, right, because we know that Swordsman Jack Duquesne from Hawkeye is rich and whatnot, and he's a little morally ambiguous. And Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin is like, hey, I know you're the swordsmaster or swordsman. Can I count on your donation and whatever? My question the entire time here, is nobody going to mention Eleanor Bishop? To me, like, these people who wrote the show, they know the MCU to bring him back, right? That's a pretty deep cut. Not a deep cut, but, from recent MCU past. Is nobody going to bring up the fact that Eleanor Bishop was working for Kingpin? That's crazy to me. Like, I would have thought that in that scene, there's such an easy way to do it. He goes, just given your recent past and your fiance's, ex-fiance's recent past, I wouldn't be talking, and I would, whatever. I would watch my back, right? I don't understand. Why is nobody referencing Eleanor Bishop? To me, that's one weird not plot hole, but thing that was just glossed over that really could have been fixed by one line of dialogue. Anyways, all that aside. I also like, though, that Matt's paranoia is really getting to him here, that his superpower, right, of hearing people who are far away is causing him to zone out of the conversation with Heather. And I think that is actually a really interesting juxtaposition there that I wasn't thinking about and wasn't thinking about before. Speaking of interesting, though, BB Urich finally, because I will say the Daniel Blake storyline still not working for me in this episode. The BB Urich storyline, though, getting interesting, actually, all of a sudden. Her conversation with the police chief commissioner and exposing the anti-vigilante task force and the fact that she knows that Wilson Fisk was the one who murdered, or at least was the lead suspect in the murder of Ben Urich. And obviously we know, for those of us who have watched Daredevil Season 1, that he was, in fact, the one who murdered Ben Urich, which was just a really scary scene. Really, really scary scene. And yeah, I think that's a storyline that I would imagine does not get completely resolved in Daredevil Born Again Season 1, but probably will get picked up in Season 2, given I would imagine at the end of the season that the task force is in full control here and is hunting down vigilantes. We will see where we go from there. I think then the next scene where Matt is walking up to confront Wilson Fisk, but he's interrupted by the dance, I think that's awesome. It's a really tense scene. You kind of think, is Matt about to just go off on Kingpin, and then it's just interrupted by the dance here. And I really love these muted conversations that Matt is having with Kingpin and with Vanessa. I think that is really cool. So then we end the episode here, and Bullseye shows up. And at first I was like, okay, so who is he here to kill? Does he want to kill Matt? Is he trying to kill Vanessa, kill Wilson Fisk? And then we get the revelation from Matt that Vanessa was the one who sent Poindexter. So that's interesting, initially to kill Foggy. Why? I don't know. I don't know. I don't think anybody knows from this episode. We'll find out in episode 9. And then he takes aim at Wilson Fisk. So Vanessa sent Luca, right, initially to kill Wilson Fisk. And I think the episode did a good job of helping us forget about that, because by the time that Bullseye takes aim at Wilson Fisk, you're like, oh, wait, shoot. Okay, this is the second time in a couple episodes. So she really hates him at this point. Why? I don't know. I think that is what the show has a lot of explaining to do, because like I said, there are some really interesting things that are being set up for the finale, but the show has a lot of explaining to do in terms of the gap between what happened when Wilson left to go see Maya or heal or whatever, and when he returns at the beginning of this season. I think that is something this show really needs to uncover here, because the fact that Vanessa, right, went from right by Wilson Fisk's side to wanting him dead that badly, is just super interesting, and I'm kind of curious to see where they go from there. The episode ends with pop music, and I'm just not a big fan of this. You guys know, if you've been watching the channel, listening to the podcast for a while, I'm just not a big fan of pop music in general being in movies and TV shows. There are some exceptions, of course there are always exceptions, but yeah, I haven't been a big fan. The first 3 seasons of Daredevil didn't really do this at all, and I just haven't been a big fan of when these episodes end with these pop songs. But I digress. It's a very small thing. I've been locked in. I've been very locked in to these past couple episodes here, and I think just starting at the end of episode 6 and going all the way through the end of episode 8, I've been very locked in. I'm a little disappointed that the whole show hasn't been like this, because if it has been, like, I really have to say, if the whole show would have been the same level of quality as episode 1, 7, and 8, and the end of 6, this would have rivaled the original series and the original seasons, and I really do mean that. I'm enjoying the season thus far overall, but I really think it's picking up steam now. And I'm glad it's picking up steam at the end and not just in the middle and it falters at the end. So I think that is preferable to the alternative. So guys, what did you think of episode number 8 of Daredevil Born Again? Are you excited for the finale? Are you a little bit nervous? Maybe me. I'm a little bit of both. We'll have to see how the finale goes. But I think that the show is finally picking up at a good point, and I am excited to see where we go from here. So guys, let me know what you thought about the second to last episode. Let me know what you thought about episode 8 in the comments down below.